Should women who work and have children be treated any differently than co-workers without kids? Well, some women on the job have a hard time because they feel a need for certain considerations as working mothers. With us today is Betty Harrigan. Betty is a working mom and the author of a book with a great title, Games Mother Never Taught You. And she also wrote Knowing the Score. Betty, it's good to have you here. Before we really start talking, let's listen to what two working mothers said when we asked how their responsibilities as a mother created problems for them while at work.
I think the biggest problem that they create for me is that I never forget that I am both a mother and a worker. And I think prior to having my daughter, I was used to being, I could have tunnel vision at work. You know, I could just work. And whatever the job took, I had the time.
If my daughter doesn't feel well, I have to stop what I'm doing and go home. And people that I work with sometimes find it difficult to understand that. But I feel my first priority is to my daughter, and so I do it.
There is no doubt that as a mother, I am a working mother with a 13-year-old. I feel a priority to my child before my work, but co-workers really don't understand that, do they, Betty?
Oh, no. The first thing you learn once you have a child at work, whether it's a baby, you know, if you had a new baby and we're still working, and you think everybody in the world just adores this child, and especially if you have older children, you find out very rapidly nobody loves those children like you do, and nobody thinks they're fascinating. They all have their problems. Don't tell me yours. You know, I mean, that's really the attitude.
But I think most women who consider themselves professional really realize that. They don't spend the whole day chattering about their kids, but are you telling us that we have to really separate our private life from our business life? Totally?
Yes, and in fact, you see, women don't understand. Working mothers, of all people, owe tremendous debt to the feminists of the late 60s, early 70s, because the main discrimination against women in jobs started out with how many children do you have or how old are your children, and that was the excuse not to hire you. And that was in the female fields even. I mean, things like teaching, nursing, department store clerks. So one of the very first cases of discrimination under Title VII was that it's illegal to ask a woman that if you don't exclude a male candidate because he has children.
Well, but it's...
And so, far from expecting that they should be treated special because they do, they're really lucky to be working because they have children. That's really what it's all about. So the last thing a working mother should go into the workforce expecting is that she gets special privileges because she has children. She's really there in a kind of sufferance by the employers, by the bosses, by co-workers, by a lot of people. So there really is no privilege involved in being a working mother.
So then how do we handle our bosses? Now you say, actually really discuss the time frame. It's all right to say, yes, I can work till 6 o'clock, but it's okay also to say 6:30 is out. But do you say 6:30 is out because I have children at home?
You have to be kind of careful. You should, on a job interview, avoid talking about it because they aren't hiring your children. They supposedly are hiring you for your ability, you know, whatever talent you have. And however, if there is something about the job detail that your private life, which is your children, will affect. Now, let us say that your husband isn't there, there is nobody to do it, you must be home no later than, say, 6:30. You ask them just about how much overtime is involved in this job. And if they say, well, not much, but kind of, you know, in rush periods, whatever, they'll give you an answer. And then you ask about the hours and say, well, I'm just asking because I want to make sure that I can do the job you want and be available, but I do have some restrictions on how much overtime or how often or how late.
So then we don't share any of our private life with our bosses?
If he says, no, you really don't. That's not part of your business.
How about co-workers? Do we antagonize them when we ask for something special because we have children or we talk a lot about our kids?
Oh, absolutely. Co-workers do not understand it at all. I mean, you're getting paid a salary to work at this job just like all of your co-workers, and there's no reason just because you have children at home to expect special privileges or something, because all these other people may have something too. They have boyfriends, they have a sick mother, they have a whole lot of responsibilities too. They may have. They may have none, but the fact is they think, well, why does she get something special? She's supposed to do it. She's getting paid the same as I am to do the same job.
And the most astounding thing is that even women co-workers don't understand if you're a mother and have a problem with a child. I guess I would assume that that would happen, but it doesn't.
No, it doesn't, and I wouldn't assume it would happen because for 20 years I saw it didn't happen like that. It was quite the opposite. Sometimes other working mothers are the worst. I mean, I used to find it, it was in teachers. No ways would those teachers stay late so I could have a conference. No, they'd have it at 3 o'clock, right in the middle of my working day, which I couldn't get off. They were working mothers too, but like they didn't ever have a understanding that to deal with the mothers who worked, they really had to work overtime themselves. I mean, there isn't any great sympathy in that whole area, you know?
Yeah, you say also to make sure that our kids keep phone calls down to a minimum. I mean, that little boy in Kramer versus Kramer, I'll never forget that scene when he kept calling his father, and it was obvious that his father's boss did not appreciate it. But is that something we have to be careful of?
Oh, absolutely, because it doesn't matter who's boss. Very rarely will a boss approve of that, or a supervisor, including a woman supervisor, right? I mean,
but what about latchkey kids, Betty? I mean, so many of us are dealing with latchkey children.
Oh, I know. Well, I did too, and I know. I had a rule, absolutely, that my daughter, when she got off the school bus, I mean, she was delivered by bus, so, and she went in the house, she had to, as soon as she arrived there, which was like 4 o'clock, as I recall, call me at the office. And everybody knew. I mean, if I wasn't at my desk, you know, my secretary or a coworker, whoever answered the phone, know that I always got that call at 4 o'clock. If I didn't, then I started worrying. In other words, there wasn't any problem. But if the call didn't come, then I would have to start doing something. So other people took the call, and as long as it came, all I had to know was it didn't come.
Sure, but it also taught your child discipline and making sure that phone call came through.
As a matter of fact, in later years, she said, she used to turn around to me and say, "You made me call you every single day at that time. Now, when you're late, you don't call me."
She turned it around.
Yeah, she turned it around.
I think one of the best pieces of advice is that you say don't take home values into the workplace or work values home. Explain that.
Well, what women are inclined to do is bring their home values to the workplace. In other words, they start a job thinking it's just like home, or well, they don't think about it, but you know, they operate that way. And at home, there are none of the efficiency operations that
there are in the workplace.
Are at all similar. So what I say to them is, you don't go to work and just think that everybody will help you, or you can get cooperation, or when the boss talks about this is a team, that a team means a family. It doesn't mean that.
Quite different. It really. Betty, I thank you. Separate private and business life, and good words. Thank you very much for being with us.